Hello and welcome to What Lingers, the podcast where we uncover the questions behind people's stories. I'm Christian Figueroa.
And I'm Liz Melchor, and we are the team behind Storytelling Lisboa, where once a month, 10 storytellers get on stage in front of 200 people and tell true and personal stories related to a theme.
It is always a great event, but there is a catch. We always have lingering questions for the storytellers and no format to ask them. Until now.
In this second season of What Lingers, we invite storytellers to revisit and listen back to their original story from that night, and then sit down with us for a conversation to uncover what lingers for us all.
Just a heads up, the recording of the story you will hear comes from the actual stage of Storytelling Lisboa, so the sound might be a little bit fuzzy.
Christian, I'm excited for today because we have a new story, and this story is really good because it's about something that I will never do. Like, I won't ever do at all. And I like learning about stuff like that from other people that are willing to do what I would never do.
Which is hiking, is it? So we have an amazing story with an amazing girl, a queer sister, yes. And her name is Shilletha. Let's listen to her story.
In 2020, a monster ravaged the earth. A monster took and took and took. Its name was the coronavirus. At the time, I was living in New Jersey, and I lost my job as a veterinarian technician. I didn't know what I would do or where I would end up, because as I knew, my job was to take care of animals and save lives and do the best that I could to protect them. And when I lost my job, I was like, what is my worth? Where am I supposed to be? Where do I belong? And it was one coworker that told me, your worth is not this job. And at the time, I didn't believe it, because I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? I went to college, I studied social work, and I started taking care of animals. But as it goes with coronavirus, we were all locked in. We weren't allowed to go outside of the walls, at least in New Jersey. But I knew that the walls couldn't contain me. And so I decided that I would do what everyone else was doing, which is hiking. I was like, what is this life, So I ended up at a state park in New York. It's called Harrowing State Park. It was with one of my ex-partners, and I found a trail on the side of the road. And I was like, what is this? What is this path? And so I go down this path, and I end up meeting a man. And he tells me, behind me is the Appalachian Trail. It runs 2,193 miles from Georgia to Maine. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. There's a trail that runs 2,193 miles from Georgia to Maine? That's 14 states, And it's like, in my heart, I just felt like I needed to do it. So immediately, not prepared, no water, not the proper boots that I have now, nothing. I was like, I'm gonna climb this trail, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna make it to Maine. So I just start going up, and when I'm going up, it's and I was like, okay, we need to reevaluate, step back. This is not rational. I'm a Libra. I'm like, this is not the way we do things. So instead I went home, and I was like, I caught this research bug, I was like, what is this trail? And do people do this? And people who look like me, do they do this? And so I went and researched because I was curious, and I didn't know there were these long trails that ran through the U.S. And as I started researching it, I was like, whoa. A, it's $6,000 to $8,000 to do this trail. B, it's 14 states. C, I have to hike through the South. And I'm a little nervous about that, And I didn't know how I was going to do it. But one day, something really tragic happened in the U.S. down in the South, and I questioned myself being a Black gay woman. And I was like, can I do this? Is it possible? Is it safe for me to do this? And so I went on a Facebook group and I asked, hey, is it safe for me to do this, being who I am? And what I got was a lot of hate back. And what I did with that hate is I turned it into power. I was like, I'm going to write to Oprah. I'm going to write to ABC7. I'm going to write to Jennifer Hudson. I don't care. I'm going to write to the New York Times, whatever. You know, like, we're going to stop this. This stops now. And what happened is I ended up writing this article. And the Appalachian Trail Conservancy that oversees the trail, someone, I guess, tipped them off. And they found out about what was happening. And I had written an article. And I sent the article to the president. He calls me crying, and he's just like, wow, you just really, like, validated my experience. Like, this is what it was like for me hiking after 9/11, you know? And he says, I want to sponsor you. And I'm like, whoa. You want to sponsor me to hike this trail, you know? And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know the Appalachian Trail. You're climbing Everest the equivalent of 16 times. In elevation, you know. I didn't know how I was going to afford the $68,000, but they sponsored me, they believed in me, and other sponsors came through, and they're like, we believe in you, Dragonsky. That's my trail name. So we all get trail names, and I'm Dragonsky. And also it was because I noticed there was a lack of representation on trail. And that really bothered me. I was like, why don't I see a lot of people like me on trail? And I wanted to make a difference. For me at the time when I started, I was like, you know, representation matters. I'm a woman, I'm gay, I'm a person of color, and I want other people to feel comfortable too, hiking this trail. And so I ended up doing this trail with just this intention of like, I want to represent, you know, and do something different. And also it's a history for me because I'll be the first gay Black woman in the United States to complete all 3 of these trails. Yeah, so it was just like, okay, when I started the trail, I was like, can I do this? Because people would doubt me. Like, you'll never make it, Dragonsky, or, you know, just say these negative things. Especially because I struggle with treatment-resistant depression. I struggle with anxiety and PTSD. And so being alone in the woods was really hard for me, but I also learned a lot about myself. When I started doing the Appalachian Trail, eventually I started looking inward, because when you're out there, all you have is food, water, shelter, and the love in your heart. You're carrying a 30-pound pack. I don't know what that is in kilograms, but, you know, you're carrying weight, and you're carrying it through rain, snow. There's bears. There's all types of animals out there, you know? And it's the one time where I had to sit with myself. And it was like, I think when I got to Tennessee, there's a place called the Roan Highlands. And it's, I think, the only stretch of balds in the United States is just like no trees. And it just goes boom, boom, boom. And I was sitting there and I was like realizing like who I was. And I was like, yeah, I have depression. Yeah, I have all these things, but this doesn't define me. And I'm capable of finishing this trail despite what anyone says, because I had so many doubts. There were times where I was like, can I really do this? Like, is depression defining me? Am I letting these things define me? And don't get me wrong, there were times where I was struggling. And I would cry and I'd just throw rocks. I'm like, I hate you, tree. Get out of my way. Or this root I would trip over. I'd be like, why are you here? Get out of my way. Especially in Maine, I was like, go. But what I realized through hiking, and I've done the Continental Divide Trail. I do the Pacific Crest Trail March 11th. I've hiked in Nepal. I'm sponsored to hike. That is my profession now. And that came with me being vulnerable and telling my truth, especially as a person living with mental disabilities. And people ask me all the time, like, why do you hike? And for me, it's because every time I hike, I choose to live. And that's deep. And I rock climb too. When I'm on a harness hanging by a string, you know, wherever high up, when I look down, I'm like, I want to live. You know, when I'm on the edge of a mountain and there's like a drop like this, I'm like, oh no, not today. You know, and I think that's really what hiking has taught me, this journey, and it's a first for me because I had never hiked before. I grew up in North New Jersey. It's a city. I had never had access to the outdoors. There was one point I was in Morristown. I had no idea I lived in a mountain. That's how like so far removed I was from the mountains. But then I realized they were my saving grace, that I could be myself. Like if I want to scream, I can scream. If I want to stim, I can stim. I have ADHD. You know, if I want to cry, guess what? I can cry. And no one's judging. The trees aren't judging me. And there's other people there, sure, but I learned to find who I am, and I found Dragonsky because I took a chance to do something that I never done before, and that's hike 2,193 miles through 14 states from Georgia to Maine. And I learned so much about myself, and it's now my career, and I would never give it up because every time I'm on trail, I'm consistently finding who I am.
Yay! Oh my God! Thank you so much, Shilletha. Welcome to What Lingers. Thank you for being here. Just before we start, could you please introduce yourself a little bit for the audience listening at home?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me here. Yes, my name is Shilletha. Most people know me as Dragonsky back in the United States. That's my trail name. I've been hiking for the past 5 years now, professionally, being sponsored, being an athlete, partnerships, whatnot. I've also written a book called Pack Light and just have been living life in the outdoors in a van and traveling the world.
Sounds not bad. But okay, we have so many questions about your story and we're super excited to talk to you. But I'm wondering if we can start at the beginning, which I think is you go on the trail, you're so excited. I love that you're like, I'm going to do it. And then you realize and like pull back and we're like, I need to prepare. But you wrote something in a Facebook group and you got negative or racist responses. And I'm just wondering if you could tell us specifically what happened in that incident.
Yeah. So basically, back when COVID happened, I wanted to do the Appalachian Trail down in Georgia. Ahmaud Arbery was killed, a black man jogging in Georgia by 2 white men, just simply because he was black and they saw him as a threat. They've been charged with murder. But that scared with me because I'm coming from New Jersey. We are a very diverse state. And I'm like, what is this crap? Because my safe as a lesbian black woman hiking in the South. I went on the Appalachian Trail Facebook group and it's 60,000 members strong. And I was like, why don't I ask the group? They should know if this is safe for me, right? I just go in there all nonchalantly. All right, I'm just going to ask my concerns. No, people were just responding with some of the most hateful things I've ever experienced, actually. Just nasty, just like keep, politics out the group. The trees don't see color. Just like saying, I don't have a dad. Just saying really horrible, stereotypical things about being a black woman. And then it just escalated. I guess someone had told the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, who oversees the trail, about it, because I was like, there are people in there defending me. There were people who were just like going along with this. So it was just like a whole thing. I got kicked out the group and everything.
Holy.
Yeah.
So was it like your question blew up and went viral and then people were like infighting? That's not what you expected when you posted it?
Not what I expected. I did not expect a bunch of infighting or anything because I'm new to the hiking community. I was like, okay, maybe there's diverse groups of people on this page. I wasn't expecting the nastiness. So that's when I started crying and I'm going to hit my keyboard. I'm going to write to Oprah. I'm going to write to whoever, because I was just so mad. I was like, how do people think this is okay? And there's people defending these people, like hundreds of people going off defending these nasty things. And I was just like, welcome to America. It was shocking, honestly, but at the same time, I was like, I feel like I should have known that just from experiences.
But what's really interesting to me is that instead of, because I guess one reaction to that would be like, okay, I'm not hiking. Like, I don't want to be around these people sort of situation, just pull back. But instead you were like, no, I'm going to talk very openly about this. And then you become a professional hiker. So it's like, what about you made you react in that way, which is such a powerful way to react. And I love it.
Honestly, I'm just tired. If I'm being honest, it's just tiring existing here. I simply asked the question to receive this much hate. People aren't comfortable with themselves or comfortable talking about this. For them, it's a threat. And at some point, I was like, that's not my problem. That seems like their problem that they need to do introspection about. So I'm going to write about this because I was like, there's probably other, especially Black folks who want to hike this trail who may be afraid to ask these questions because of those reactions, or maybe at the same time, this will empower someone. So that's how I was feeling. I want to share my story in hopes that this doesn't happen. I know it's going to continue to happen, but at least I can bring awareness to this. So that's where my mind went.
Yeah, that's something that was when I listened to your story, and maybe for context for people who are not very aware of the United States situation. I mean, you share your story in Lisbon. I'm from Colombia, and I guess a lot of people are not conscious about what it means and what it entails to be a Black person in the south of the United States, and also to be a hiker, a Black queer hiker, as you said in the video. So yeah, what is the overall experience, if you can give us just a little brief summary?
Yeah, for me, honestly, hiking in the South wasn't as bad as hiking in the North, which is weird. So this is the funny part. Like in Georgia, okay, there's a lot of Confederate flags, blah, blah, blah. I didn't really have any issues, honestly, until maybe I got to Tennessee. There was people like standing out of their driveways to just stare at me. And most of the interactions that I had actually came from other hikers initially. In Georgia, for instance, like I had a hiker come up to me who just came up and just literally called me the N-word.
Oh, wow.
I'm sitting there putting my tent up and he says something to me like, why can I say the word?
Yeah.
Says it to me. He's a white man. I have a Black daughter, so I should be. And I was like, excuse me, who are you? Hi, my name is Shilletha. Just having that experience. But I would say it more amped up so when I got to the North, which is weird because usually we consider the Northeast of the United States to be way more liberal, way more open. But I started to experience a lot more issues, I would say, when I got to Pennsylvania, because that's actually where the Mason-Dixon line is in the United States. So if you go back to history, it's where like enslaved Africans had to go even past that to be free. So that's like a very heated spot. And it's also a sundown town, which means after dark, if you're Black in that town, this is still a thing in the U.S. The cops will harass you after dark. A woman told me, you can't leave the woods right now, honey. This is a sundown town. They will kill you and cover it up. These are the things that I was like, whoa, are people touching my hair and mane? You're exotic. We don't see a lot of your type here. And I'm like, this is the North. This is not like Alabama. This is not Texas. This is Pennsylvania and New England, Vermont, Maine, these places where it's actually very white, 98% respectively, where it was just like people were just very like subtly racist and very openly racist. And I wasn't expecting that. I would expect more so in the South, to be honest.
And I'm blown away, like all of these experiences that you're bringing. And I can understand why you're exhausted and tired. Were you visiting Lisbon when you share your story? This Lisbon having something to do with this experience of being exhausted, of being in the States?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like because people want to tie it to whatever's going on now. And I'm like, so here's my paradigm. I'm always going to be Black. I'm always going to be a Black woman. It doesn't matter who wins, runs what here.
Yeah.
I'm going to be called names. I'm going to get paid less. I'm going to be treated horribly medically. It's ingrained in the system, which is different from other countries. When I went to Portugal last Christmas, I just felt something. I've been in 10 countries. I've lived in China. I spent 8 weeks in Romania. I've been around and I was like, there's just something here. And I know Portugal's not perfect, but I was like, something feels like I should be here. So I came back in August, hiked the Camino, really got to experience the country a lot more. Went to National Park de Giris, just went around everywhere by myself. And I was like, I really feel peaceful here. Also in Lisbon and Porto and places. I'm like, no one's looking at me. They just think I'm Angolan and I follow some Portuguese, some learning. I just seem to fit in and that's kind of part of it. I was on the Camino from Porto to Santiago. Did not feel like I had to be like, oh God, oh man, I'm Black. Oh God, I have to think about me going into towns or my interactions or how I'm hiking through the woods. It's a huge part of that.
And those encounters tinged with racism, they weren't really happening on the Camino?
I didn't have any, even through Spain. No one bothered me. And I think mostly a lot because I do speak a lot of Portuguese. So people were just like, oh my God, and happy. And even in Spain, people spoke with me. And I was like, there was Camino Diversidad signs everywhere and there's rainbow benches. And I would just lie on the rainbow streets. And that's why it's my favorite trail, because I was like, I feel like I could just be and exist.
And going back to hiking in America and the issue of race, you talked about representation in your story, representation on the trail. And I'm wondering if you could talk about it in two directions, like both because there have been, I think, other prominent Black hikers that have come before you, but now also you are taking up that role of being somebody who's representing. And I'm wondering what that's like for you.
Yeah. So representation, especially in the United States, being a Black woman, especially because there's actually a lot more Black men on trail. Being a woman comes with being another minority on top of that. Even when I talk to Black women who have come before me, there's one Black woman who's Triple Crown.
And just quickly say what Triple Crown mean for people who aren't so hiking knowledgeable like me.
Yeah. So the Triple Crown is the completion of the big 3 long trails in America, the Appalachian Trail, which is 2,193 miles, the Continental Divide Trail, which is 3,050 miles, and the Pacific Crest Trail, which is 2,650 miles. So when you do all 3 of those, you earn the Triple Crown, because only 300 people have done that. That's a lot of miles on the feet. So there's only one Black woman that we know of in America that has done that. There's been a few Black men, and then talking about just like Black women summiting Everest and Denali. There's one Black woman we know, but we haven't heard of her. And I'm like, why aren't our accomplishments being talked about? And for me, that's very frustrating because even the Black men get more like sponsorships, more everything, just more awareness.
Visibility.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it's just like, all right, what about Black women? What about us? What about us queers out here? So for me, it just became like when I started this journey, going back to the article, I was like, is there anyone that looks like me that does this? So I started researching because I was like, I don't see Black women outside. I grew up in the hood. I grew up in North New Jersey. So I was like, we're in the hood. You don't do that. We're just like, oh, that's what white people do. Black people don't do hike. That's just the mindset of how I grew up. And so now be someone that is very visible in the outdoors. It is a lot to carry, but at the same time, it really fulfills me in the sense that I inspire other Black women. Even today, I have a meeting with 6 other Black women who are doing the PCT later because they're like, oh, we want to get Dragonsky on a call. And that's really powerful. Or like people who did the AT because I saw another woman that looks like me. And when I have my rainbow tutu on trail on the AT, I always hike in a rainbow tutu for Pride Month. I don't really care. And someone was like, they saw me on trail and they're like, I love you because you're the only person that's out. People are hiding. And I'm just like, hey, or in the CDT and Wyoming and Montana, where it's very conservative, people were just like making faces at me or why are you wearing that? I'm like, because it's pride, baby. It's just like having that confidence. I walk in my truth. That's what I always say as my quote. I walk in my truth so that others may walk in theirs and know who they are. And that's what representation means to me. It means just being here, showing up unapologetically and existing in a space where historically, especially in the United States, Black people were excluded.
Amazing. Yeah, like it's super empowering to hear you and the brave, I guess, it takes to do all this. I'm thinking as a queer man, I'm a cis white queer man in Lisbon. Sometimes I'm afraid of doing, I don't know, wearing a flag or something in the streets. And here you are just being super out there, yeah, for the community. So, yeah, really honored and happy that you're here with us talking about this. So thank you.
Quick aside, don't you have a rainbow tutu? I think you do, right?
I do have it.
Yeah.
We got the rainbow tutu connection.
Yes. Hello.
One day you guys can both be on stage in the rainbow tutu.
Amazing. Shilletha, I wanted to also to bring something that is very important for me as a therapist and also in mental health support. You mentioned your mental health challenges and depression and anxiety. And I wonder how they started, because I know you were working also with the veterinary field in the area of animal care, which also I know it's a very challenging. And for people who doesn't know this, veterinarians are one of the most, professionals with mental health issues and suicidal rates in the world. I'm a vet and I left the field many years ago. Because it's not easy, but I was wondering if there was a connection between you working with animals or working with owners of pets as well. Maybe a trigger, or you already shared a lot of reasons for having these challenges, but would you mind sharing how this journey started?
Yes, that's a great question. My journey with depression and mental illness really started since I was a kid. It's genetically. So my mother has depression and then just trauma. And I think that as a kid, of course, I didn't get help. No one got me help. So I think by the time I went to college, I was like, there is something wrong with me. Like the teachers, and I have ADHD too. So the teachers would be like, why isn't she sitting still? She would just get up and hit people. I mean, I would just be like going off as a kid, but no one saw that. And then as a 17-year-old, I was like, there is something actually wrong with me. Like there's something wrong. And not in the sense like I'm defective, but my brain works differently than others. So that's when I got diagnosed. I was like, this is bad. Like, I'm very depressed. Like, I'm in and out of the hospital. Like, what is going on? Like, why do I feel like this? And I just kept going to therapy. This has been like, what am I, 33 now? Yeah. So at 17, I started all this treatment, still in treatment, because it's climbing a mountain, I say, with mental illness. I'm going up and I'm going down. I have my highs and my lows. I have my valleys and my streets. I'm crossing rivers and whatever, but it's been a difficult journey simply because I have treatment-resistant depression, which means my depression doesn't really respond to standard treatment. I've tried different types of therapies. I've tried 31 medications to no avail, 7 hospitalizations, and now I'm on ketamine infusions. And so that has been the life-saving factor. But I will say that it's just something I think I'm always going to live with. With the ketamine and depression, the treatment looks promising because you can actually go into full remission within 5 years. So that's promising. The other things I'm not sure about, but I'm doing the best I can with what I can with therapy. I think going into being a vet tech, because originally I went to school for social work. I wanted to be a scientist. So I think being a vet tech actually really took a toll, which is why I'm actually very grateful. And I know it sounds weird because I'm like, COVID was a bad time for people, but for me, it was the most freeing time of my life. I was like, I got out of that because it was starting to take its toll, seeing like neglected animals and seeing people just not do the right things or just like not bring their like puppies coming. Like, I'm not going to vaccinate my dog for distemper or like what, you know? And it's just like the things that I've seen. It's not even the euthanasia part. It's just like the neglect. I would just come home and I would take it out on my own dog. And I was like, I can't be in this field anymore because I'm like, I'm yelling, I'm engaging in behaviors that I don't really do. So that did need to break. And so with hiking, that did help break that. But at the same time, hiking isn't a substitution for mental health or getting treatment. Yeah.
And but it must in some ways like shift your depression or how your depression is like on the trail. I mean, when you talk about being out there alone and you're only with yourself, like that feels so powerful and terrifying, but also it must be transformative in some way, right?
Yes and no. I describe my hiking because I do a lot of this through hiking alone because I just like to be alone. But it comes with a double-edged sword. Yes, I'm free. Yes, I feel these things. Yes, I can go stem and scream. And if I want to go swim in the water because I need a sensory out or whatever, I can go do that. But, huge but, being in my brain with myself is like the other end of the sword. It's not good. I have to listen to music. I cannot do silence. With the ketamine treatment, I can do silence a lot more because now it's not like, you suck. It's more like, yep, that thought came and it passed. So I'm more able to sit with myself, but at the same time in the woods, I'm like, oh God, I'm alone. Yeah, my brain hates me right now. I hate me. And then I'll just be like, oh, but there's this corner over here. So it could actually get very elevated for me and make things more dangerous because I know I'm alone. And that way it can be like the opposite and very triggering for me where I'm just like, okay, I need a friend, or I'll just start sobbing and stuff. Yeah.
And how do you manage when that loneliness gets so much on the trail? Are there people to reach out to? Or it seems like some of these people are not safe. But yeah, it's like, how long can you stay alone on trail? I have no idea.
The longest I've been alone without seeing anyone, the Continental Divide Trail, which is the most remote, I went 2 weeks in the desert, mountain lion country. You know, nobody. I would sit on my tent. I'd be like, someone's going to come. I would eventually start talking to yourself like it's true. I'd be like, okay, Dragonsky, someone's going to come today. You just need to eat your dinner. I would just start losing it a little bit. And I have to remind myself also in these moments, I'm like, tomorrow's not going to be like this. I get like really into my head, but it's just a reminder of tomorrow's not going to be like this. And if it is, I have to give myself grace because what I've learned from hiking is why it took me to do 8 months on the Appalachian Trail is because my depression was literally eating me alive. There were days I was like, I can't get out of my tent. There were days I could only do 2 miles. There were days I needed to go into town for 3 days because I knew hikers were going to come in. And I was like, oh, we're going to drink, we're going to party, whatever. But it was a lot of times I just couldn't hike. I would just be in my tent sobbing. And I would just have to be like, I need to give myself this space.
And you say 8 months, and that's a long time. What's a normal time to finish a trail like that? I have no idea.
Most people finish most of these trails within 5 to 6 months.
Okay. What keeps you going? I would quit, but I'm a quitter. But what kept you going?
What kept me going was I didn't want to go home because what am I going back to? What is the matrix going to provide? It was like hiking helps me live. When I hike, I'm always choosing to live because I have fallen off a mountain. I've had to be helicoptered off a mountain once with an ice axe. Yeah, a glacier.
Oh my God.
And I was like, guess what? I chose to live because I chose to put the ice axe in. There's moments where I'm like, oh, snap, my ankle rolled and now I'm down an embankment. But I'm like, I'm always choosing. I'm like, I don't want to die today. So I'm always consciously choosing life, even though in the matrix, my brain, my depression is always choosing the opposite.
And how's your life when you're not hiking? Because you mentioned when you're hiking, like you're choosing to leave, but what happens when you're not hiking?
Oh, that's a great question. It's hard because I'm always staying busy. It's actually very hard for me because I don't know how to be. I'm like, I have shed Shilletha. That's why I'm Dragonsky, because a dragonfly named me. And I'm like, I've come out of the water like a nymph. I've gotten my wings. I'm a dragonfly. And all I know how to do is fly. So I feel like I'm feral now. Going through a trail of this magnitude, it's like when you speak to thru hikers, we're not the same. I don't feel like I fit into the world anyway anymore because I'm just like, what is this? So in my time now to stay busy, I keep traveling and I try to spend as much time with my friends. I learn Portuguese. So I just have to stay busy because even though the ketamine has stopped the thoughts, it's just that I'm so used to having a brain for all these years. If you don't do something, and also maybe that's American society, but I feel like it's more of my brain of if I don't do something, I start to think.
Yeah, things that came to my mind when you were sharing your story and how this society it's making us say like the whole matrix. And you mentioned like I grew up in New Jersey, I never saw the mountains, how the mountains look, and like how nature is so important for us, but also how being on your own can help others. Being in nature, growing with trees, growing I don't know with time. It's really interesting that you said like white people hike. It's almost a privilege to be in nature and to walk, like to have the money to take a holiday and just to do a trail, which is something crazy. I mean, nature is there for everyone and everyone should be able to be in nature because we are part of it and it's actually good for us. Again, I'm just very grateful for all this food for thought that you're bringing to the table with your experience.
I'm wondering about thru hikers. It sounds like the thru hikers, it's its own subculture and everybody has a trail name and you have this trail name Dragonsky. And I would love to know more of how one gets a name, but also you have your own lingo and stuff like that. And talking about not feeling like you fit in the standard world. And then also being a Black queer woman that's not someone that's represented very much in the hiker world. Do you feel a part of the hiker world now? And what is that world like?
Yeah. So firstly, thru hikers, us thru hikers, yes, we do have our own culture. Thru hikers are hikers that literally walk continuously, like for instance, the Appalachian Trail, 5 months straight at a time. These are thousands of miles or hundreds of miles, like the Colorado Trail, I think it's 700 miles. So we just consistently go take our backpacks out. We only go into town to resupply. So I only go into town to get food for the next 5 to 6 days. Maybe if I want to take a shower, wash clothes, and then I'm out for 2 weeks. And that's the only time you stop and you keep going. So that's what thru hiking is, point to point for months on end. We have our own culture. We have our own lingos. We have our I'm like yellow blazing, blue blazing, safety meetings.
Yeah, what does that mean? What does yellow blazing mean?
So yellow blazing, yeah. Yellow blazing is skipping the trail. Blue blazing is taking like blue blazes on a trail instead of the regular blazes. Safety meetings are smoke breaks. You bring your safety supplies.
What's blaze? What's blazes?
We have blazes that mark the trail on the trees. Like you'll have a paint or you're taking your gear and you're spreading it all as far as you can across the grass. So we have our own little lingo and our things every day. People are like, what's your trail name? how many miles you're doing. And we get trail names. Trail names, how they usually work are you do something wild. For instance, somebody I know's name is Dirty Pasta. Why is their name Dirty Pasta? Because they dropped their pasta in the mud. They had no other food to eat and they just ate their food out the mud. So they call them Dirty Pasta. Okay, so that's one way of getting a name. For me, Dragonsky, my trail name came to me before the trail at New York. I was hiking with this guy who I probably shouldn't have been hiking with because he was not very pleasant. Just very passive aggressive. I ended up like falling into a boulder crying. He was like, I don't have time for your feelings. Go deal with that yourself. It was the second time I backpacked. So I had no idea how to turn around. I just remember like sobbing on this rock. Like, oh, I feel so lost. And then I'm like, oh, something's on my head. What is this? And I look at my foot and it's an orange dragonfly. And I'm like, whoa, dragonflies have 30,000 eyes, fun fact. So they're very intentional about where they land because they can see everything. The dragonflies have always been like my favorite animal since I was a little kid. And so this dragonfly is just sitting with me as I'm crying. And it just occurs to me that I'm not alone. To go from my head to my foot instead of flying away, I'm like, whoa. The dragonfly is like, okay, flies away. And it was a gray day and the clouds just cracked open a blue. And I was like, and that's my name, Dragonsky.
Oh, I like that story. Do you see a lot of dragonflies while you hike?
Yeah, I've seen them since my aunt passed away. I've always seen them. And it's interesting because even other hikers, they didn't believe me. We were in the desert, which is no place. Dragonflies thrive in water. They eat mosquitoes. And he was like, I didn't believe you. And he's like, when you put up your tent, a dragonfly came and landed on it. One time a person dropped me off on the trail and she was like, you won't believe what happened. She's like, dragonfly came and visited me and I knew you were safe. So yeah, no, they're always landing on me. They're always around me. And if they're not, it's not their season. I'll see them in like pictures or in other ways. And my friend who is indigenous, a part of the Pekuni tribe in Glacier, she told me, because I would never say this, but she says it because she's indigenous. She's like, that's your spirit animal. And what we believe is that they hold the souls of the dead. So you always have someone with you. So she's like, that's your animal.
I get it. I love it.
Totally. I love that. And I'm also very naive with the trail culture. When you say that the trail takes 5 months, is it that you start and you just stop and take you 8 months? Or you go home, you go back? Like, who's tracing this? Or can I just go like, I did it? I don't know how that works.
Are there trail cheaters?
The yellow blazers, we call them. We're going back to those. Those are people.
They're the cheaters.
That go, oh, I don't want to do this part because I don't like it. Let's take a car or hitch, stick my thumb out. Yeah, those are yellow blazers. They skip.
Okay.
And they say they did the trail. There's no respect for people like that. That being said, through hiking, every day I'm in my tent. I wake up in rain. I wake up in snow. I sometimes have to pack my tent up, a wet tent, and my path where everything's wet. And sometimes it rains for 5 days. And guess what? You're doing that for 5 days. So you're in the elements. It's not like the Camino where it's like, oh, I can have my vino. Oh, I have my hostel. Everything is awesome. No, out there, especially on the Continental Divide Trail, you might be 30 miles from town, 30, 40 kilometers away from a town. You have to go and hopefully you have enough food. And the water you just filter, because I have a water filter. Sometimes I boil, filter, and put the pills in because sometimes it's cow water where the cows are crapping. And you're like, in the desert, guess what? That's your water source. So you're going to go drink the green, brown water with the snail things in there because that's survival. And so it's literally like you're surviving. And I've had 4 grizzly bear encounters. I've seen a cougar kill. I've had rattlesnakes. I've seen bison very up close, Yellowstone. I've come in contact with animals you wouldn't believe, and it's just like, no, we don't go home. If you go home, usually you don't come back out. You only go into town to get those 5 days of food, put it back on your back. You have 2 pairs of clothes. Anything more than that, it's not needed for survival. You're literally carrying the bare minimum. Water filter, 2 pairs of clothes, sleeping bag, tent, shelter, the necessities. And that's what I like about it, because you're literally just depending on what you have. Just go into town and get your food.
We don't need much to just live. And we created this whole crazy matrix society of buying and consuming, but you actually need just 2 pair of pants and your tent. So you stay on your tent like for 8 months in this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. But amazing.
I was also curious because you grew up and no one around you was hiking, and how have your friends and family reacted to now you're like a professional hiker?
Yeah. So A lot of my friends I actually met through this experience 5 years ago. So they're all, because they were in the group and they were just like, yeah, we stand with you. So now I have a lot of them. But all my friends are very proud. They're always just like, you're badass. Like, you wrote a book. Like, you're hiking trails. Some of them are now doing things I'm doing. Like, they quit their jobs, got a van and stuff. Or like, one of them was like, I just don't want to start the trail because I want to be like you and practice and stuff. And so I've just become like a huge role model for my friends, and they always know I'm down to hike. Well, my family, I'm not so close with. I think just my cousin is the closest person. She's like very funny because she doesn't know much about hiking. I don't know anything. She's from the South, so she talks like that. She's like, I don't know anything about none of that hiking stuff. So she's like, I didn't know anything until you did it. So she still doesn't know. But overall, she's happy. They're really proud that I'm doing this. It wasn't the hat that I knew I would ever wear in life.
Absolutely. Which just makes it more special. Those things that you don't choose by yourself, they come to you as a path for you to follow. So that's amazing. Shilletha, would you take me to the moment where you finish? Like, I don't know, is it like a big stone at the end that you know that this is the end and someone waiting for you to clap or cheer you up, and it's just a lonely place where you just, that's the end and you just go home?
For me, and well, for every trail, there is a terminus, a northern and southern terminus. So there is a start and end point. I think the starting for me is way more exciting just because, oh snap, here we are again. Like, it's like that moment of being at the border and just saying like, oh snap, like, I've got my gear. I'm going to be away. I get to be feral and poop in the woods again and do what I want, like where I want, pretty much, because there's not rules, but it's just that freedom comes. And then when I'm ending, it's kind of like, for me, I think more so the Continental Divide Trail, moreover, the Appalachian Trail was a better ending for me. The Appalachian Trail is okay, December now, and it's snowing a lot, and I'm tired of this. And the Continental Divide Trail, because some people feel like sense of relief, they're like happy to get over. Some people never through hike ever again. I've met people who are like, we're done. We're not doing this again, especially the Appalachian Trail, because you climb Everest the equivalent of 16 times in elevation. So I'm like, I don't want to do that again either. There's nothing that compels me in my soul to do that. But for the Continental Divide Trail, like finishing, because it took me 2 seasons, I fell off the mountain, had to get helicoptered. I lost my tramley. Also, a tramley is a trail family. You usually end up getting that. I hiked with 4 other people, 2 from the UK. The first year, they all ended up quitting at once. That took a huge toll on me. Oh. So I came back the next year and I was like, for me to finish, it was very rewarding because I decided I was going to finish in a place that I had to get helicoptered out. So I started from the southern terminus in Canada, hiked through Montana, Glacier, Yellowstone, Tetons, got to Colorado to the South San Juans. A friend joined me and we looked up to the spot where I felt. And so for me to finish in a spot and reclaim a place where it could have been the end of my life, but because I had the tools and the safety device and everything, I was able to live. For me, that was just like, oh, snap. I did the hardest one out of all of them, like mentally. I faced the grizzly bears, 4 of them. Lightning is not a game on that trail. There's a point where you're in the basin. You are the tallest thing for 200 miles. It's flat and it's lightning every day. You are the point of contact. So it's just like going through that trail versus the AT because it's easier. It's the party trail. Like being out there, I was like, I really have to depend on myself. I really have to make sure when I'm going through brush is high that I'm like, hey, bear, hi. Always singing out loud, always making sure my bear spray, my whistle, I'm not eating 2 miles or 4 kilometers away from my tent. For me, finishing that trail was like, wow, I feel like I'm on like Survivor or something, naked and afraid. I am warrior.
Yeah.
I was like, I am feral.
It's like, yeah. I mean, it's like you're feeling your power, right? And you're choosing, like, as you said in your story, like you're choosing life like over and over, and you're sort of like facing the possibility of it not going so well. And like, you just keep doing it. And it's super admirable because I don't have that in me. Like I would not even survive a week. I think I'd be like back down into the town for warm food, warm meal, warm bed. But thank you so much, Shilletha, for talking to us. Like, it was so nice to hear. It was so nice is such a bad adjective. I hate it. But it was like so wonderful. I loved hearing your story on the stage. And I really loved talking to you more about sort of this world that I don't know anything about and probably will never know anything about in an experiential way. And I just have one final question for you, which is how's it been to revisit your story today?
It was really powerful because I don't watch my talks back. I mean, I've done public speaking at stadiums, and I'm like, that's one thing I don't do. So I felt, and actually, that was the one time I spoke where I was the most comfortable. I don't know why. I was just like, I was very comfortable, and just watching that back, I was like, wow, I'm really comfortable in Portugal. There, I'm like, I feel my power, because again, I feel like that's where home is. It was just like, wow, that's me. I did that. Just seeing that and seeing everyone's reactions, afterwards. And I'm just honored and proud of myself for really stepping out of especially with anxiety, to just go up there. I didn't plan it. I was just like, I know who I am and I know my story, and I just went for it.
That's it for this episode of What Lingers.
Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode, and also follow us on Instagram at Storytelling Lisboa to keep up to date.
What Lingers is a podcast from the team behind Storytelling Lisboa and is produced by Johnny Bunyan. He's amazing.
Thank you so much for listening, and join us again for another edition of What Lingers.
See you next week.